Every successful person got there by going through tough times. Success is a hard-ass teacher who likes to knock you around along that journey. You know, it takes real guts to not give up and keep going. We'll hear stories about failures and how these leaders flip the script to create success. I'm John Schultz. Join me and let's discover how success is never really overnight. So welcome to the John Schultz podcast. We have a terrific guest today. You know, I was going to call this show the 30-year overnight success. I changed it to the myth of overnight success because I didn't want to have too many people that, you know, were in business for 40 years. I wanted a variety, but we actually have the actual person that would quantify that show. And I'm so excited to have him on. It's Bob Garrett, CEO of Hackensack Meridian Health, the largest health network in New Jersey. And we're all proud of it. They do great things for New Jersey. Oversaw the Hackensack Meridian merger, right? When you did a merger with Carrier Clinic and you launched a medical school, all these things we're going to talk about. CEO Forum Group ranked him number one CEO in transforming healthcare in America, not New Jersey, America in 2021. And welcome, Bob. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it. Great to be here, and great to be with you as well. And yeah, I guess my career does go back all those years. So I guess I'm the epitome of that 30-year or 40-year deal, right?
Which is amazing. And you're still going and you're stronger than ever. And that's why people want to be around you. So we're excited to have you on the podcast. So, you know, this show is a myth to overnight success, but we always like to get a little background with the younger self. So, right. So where did you grow up when you were a young man?
Yeah, so I was born actually in Connecticut, in Hartford, Connecticut, but then I grew up in New York, in Huntington, New York. So great lifestyle out on Long Island in those days. Don't get out there as much anymore because of the traffic, but it was a great place to grow up. And my family was all raised out there, and they've moved away since. So I've kind of been a Jersey boy now for most of my life and all of my career. But it was great. And you know, I look back at childhood memories very fondly. We had a great family, very supportive, and you know, I think, you know, my family was so responsible for where I am today in so many different ways.
So how would your parents describe you as a kid? How's that?
Yeah, I don't know. You know, it's interesting. I think my dad is still with us at 91. God bless him.
Wow.
So we could actually ask him. He's not right here. but he you know, I think they would say that I kind of came out of my shell probably a little bit on the late side. So I kind of was gradually started to, you know, excel in a lot of different ways. I was probably a little bit slow at the draw, if you will, at first, a little bit shy as a child in grammar school. And then, you know, as things moved on and through college and whatnot, you know, I got more self-assured, you know, more outgoing, and you know, the rest kind of was history. So I think they would probably describe me as, you know, a nice kid that was, I wouldn't say no trouble. I like to say that, but you know, we'll have to ask my dad again. But he, you know, it's so funny because we just, my dad was just with us in New Jersey for a few weeks. He's in Florida, retired, and he was up in New Jersey, and we were actually dedicating at Hackensack University Medical Center a rose garden in my mom's name. She passed away 20 years ago, and they were dedicating this garden. And so I made a few comments, and just to show, I guess I have come out of my shell. After my comments were over, and they went on for about, I have to say, about 10 or 15 minutes because I had a lot to say. Then I asked my dad if he'd like to say anything. He goes, "Well, after that, there's nothing left to say." I left him nothing to say. So he probably would say I'm totally out of my shell now.
And very proud of you. I'm sure he says that as well.
He does.
So what were some of your passions growing up through, you know, high school, college? You know, what got you started in business?
Sure.
And, you know, where'd that go?
Well, I like, certainly in high school and in college, I enjoyed activities. I enjoyed sports. I played tennis, played baseball. I was a skier. Love to ski. Still do love to ski. So that's been a kind of a lifelong passion for me. What kind of got me started in business? It was kind of interesting. So I was probably, a typical college student in a lot of ways. I wasn't necessarily the most focused student, especially at the very, very beginning, and wasn't sure exactly what I was going to do with my life, even what my major was going to be. And I actually was focused on running for office at school. And, people would say, "Oh, what were you, like the president or vice president or whatever?" No, I actually got elected to be the keg master of my dorm. So that just shows you where my head was at then. And by the way, I'm still very proud of that. That was good. Although
I
they
like
they
that. It's a good
they
one.
told me I had to take it off my resume, though it wasn't relevant anymore. I'm thinking, well, maybe it is. Who knows? But anyway, I started out there, so I was not maybe as focused as I could have been. But we had a family friend, Sister Mary Jean Brady, who ran Mercy Hospital in Rockville Center, New York. Very prominent faith-based organization out on Long Island, and she was over our house. I remember this, and I think my parents kind of were looking at it as an intervention because they were thinking, maybe Sister Mary Jean could get me more focused and all that. And so she encouraged me to do an internship at Mercy Hospital in Rockville Center. So I spent the summer, like 3 months there, and it really did get me focused. I mean, I learned a lot about what hospitals are, what they're not, how they run. I really learned about the compassion that's given on the front lines. I rounded with Sister Mary Jean and understood what it took to really run a hospital. And I was just fascinated and in awe of the whole thing. And it's kind of like the rest was history, because that was kind of an intervention in more ways than one. And then I decided I was going to go to graduate school and get a degree in hospital administration. So my parents were happy, Sister Mary Jean was happy, and that kind of got me on this path to pursue a career in healthcare and in healthcare administration.
So you went to college, you got this administration degree, right?
Right.
And that's so interesting because it wasn't like it was in your sights. It just sort of happenstance created this moment. And what was the passion to continue it? Like you did the rounds, like what was the inner feeling that made you actually want to take this to the next step, being so young and not really knowing what you wanted?
It was really about feeling a mission, like feeling a purpose in life. I just felt that, wow, here's an opportunity to be able to help so many people. I mean, sometimes in a way it sounds a little bit corny, but it truly was, deep inside. And I just saw all the good that was coming each and every day, in those halls of the hospital. So it made me, a motivated student in graduate school. As I said, I was kind of a late bloomer. So as the years went on, I got better and better at school. And by the time I finished graduate school and I was ready to do my, first postgraduate residency program, which really was where my career launched, I was really excited. I was really motivated, and I felt that that passion, that mission inside of me. That hey, here's my chance to get launched and to really make a difference.
That's great. So you went to the school, right? So you get out, and where was your first job? Like, where did you land?
So, I was in school in St. Louis at the time, and I got my degree in healthcare administration. And then I did my first residency, believe it or not, in a place called Hackensack, New Jersey. So it was at Hackensack. It was called Hackensack Hospital at the time. And one of the graduates of my program out in St. Louis was the CEO at Hackensack at the time. So he had sponsored me as an administrative resident. And the idea there was I was supposed to be there a year, learning the ropes, if you will, about hospital administration, hands-on. I would do some projects, but I was fortunate in the sense that maybe they saw something in me, I saw something in them. But after 6 months, and it was supposed to be a year, but after 6 months, they offered me a job and my first job not that this was easy as a first job, but they actually said, "How would you like to run the emergency department?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's quite a job just to get out of
Right.
school." And there I was on the front lines in one of the busiest, even back in those days, one of the busiest emergency departments in the entire country.
So, okay, so now it's 4 decades later, right?
Yes.
Most people feel, success can happen sooner in their life, which it does. It's in chunks, right? Each thing that we do and we pursue, hopefully we're feeling successful at what we're doing. But here you are now at the pinnacle. So tell us some stories about like how you got there, what it took, how things changed for you along the way, why you kept in it, like what kept you going in being in one industry for so many years and sticking to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts and kind of ends with the mission. I always believed in the mission. That was kind of like a common theme through the 40 years was really, to stay focused on the mission. Some of the things that happened along the way, certainly, we saw a lot of changes in healthcare. The Affordable Care Act, as an example, in 2009, really led me as a new CEO after spending many years in different positions within the hospital. As a new CEO, led me in a different direction because up to that point, up at Hackensack, we were really focused on making Hackensack Hospital, which became Hackensack University Medical Center, the best hospital in the country. We were all about a single focus, one hospital. But when the Affordable Care Act was passed in Washington, I knew that we needed to change direction. I knew that just having one hospital wasn't going to be able to enable us to succeed in the future. We needed to build a health system. We needed to build an integrated network. We needed to expand. We needed to get into new geographies. It was just a different world. So that was kind of a pivotal moment. I would say the other thing, going back to my parents, I have to say, my dad was always and still is the eternal optimist. So that was a major piece for me, was just staying optimistic. No matter what happened in the job, no matter what happened around me, to stay optimistic. I can remember, John, when we were kids and we went to Florida, and there were I think 4 days or 5 days of rain and only 2 days of sunshine. We came back, and all my dad would focus on were the 2 days of sunshine, how great the weather was, how we had a great time, at the beach, how we had a great time at the pool or whatever. So that optimism really carried me through. And my mother was very driven. So, always had her in my ear. You gotta strive to do better. You gotta strive to make a bigger difference. So I think that combination was really good. The other piece that I felt like one of the lessons learned as a leader over time, and I think made me today a stronger CEO, was the skill of listening. I think it's really very much underrated as a key leadership skill. Being able to listen. I mean, a lot of leaders can talk, and they speak in front of groups, and they're used to leading by speaking and getting their message across, which is very important. But the listening piece is just as important. And somebody sent me this book, and it was entitled, or they sent me a quote actually from a book, and the quote was entitled that leaders who don't listen eventually surround themselves with people who have nothing to say. And by the way, I just to full disclosure, it was my wife who sent me the quote. Maybe she was telling me something, but it is very true. And the listening piece became very important, and became a real asset to me, because you go into a room and you could just kind of go in and dominate and speak and for an hour, and you don't even know if you're really necessarily connecting with people. But if you're really listening and watching body language and listening to what other people are saying, you really become that much greater a leader. But there were definitely pivotal moments along the way, John, that really shaped who I am today.
Well, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? There's a reason for that, right? We want to try to listen as much as we can. Because the first thing that happens in any meeting is, like, if you're thinking about what you want to say before you hear, it's divergent paths, right?
Right.
And But I do think you need to have a good sense of communication as a leader of a company, because you want people to believe in the mission so that
Correct.
they'll follow you. And then obviously that's important too. You have both character traits, and that's why you are where you are. So, okay, you had so many large, monumental moments during these 40 years. Let's discuss a few. I mean,
Sure.
first was obviously becoming CEO, but the merger that created that position was very unique, right? Merger of equals, I guess,
Right.
2016, that, two unbelievable healthcare leaders coming together. Because the Affordable Care Act, you had to create a new way of doing things in New Jersey for healthcare. We all know that now, right? We didn't really
Right.
fully all understand that at the beginning. So let's talk through, like, what's it like to have to actually come together and be a co-CEO in a huge, conglomerate now coming together that has to organize and still run day to day.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was probably the biggest challenge of my career. Number one, as I said before, changing course and saying, okay, let's focus on building a system. It's the right thing to do because of what was happening in healthcare with the Affordable Care Act and some of the trends happening. So when I became CEO in 2009, we started to build this health system, and Hackensack University Medical Center became part of Hackensack University Health Network. Where we acquired Palisades Medical Center. We joint ventured at Pascack Valley Medical Center and Mountainside Medical Center. But as things continued to evolve in healthcare, we recognized that that wasn't enough. We needed to get larger, but we also needed to cover more geography, and we needed to get into certain aspects of healthcare that Hackensack really wasn't involved in. And that's what led us to Meridian as a partner. So let me give you a couple examples on that. So Hackensack, as I said, was always known, or at least over the last 30 years, known as a great hospital. It emerged from a community hospital to a major teaching hospital, one of the leading hospitals in the nation. So from a hospital perspective, Hackensack had what it needed. And now it had these other community hospitals that we built after 2009 and folded into our system. But what Meridian had was this vast continuum of care. We recognized at the time, and Meridian obviously recognized, that more and more healthcare was going to be delivered outside the four walls of the hospital. It could be in surgery centers or in urgent care centers, in physicians' offices, in assisted living facilities, in post-acute care, nursing homes, wherever, but there was going to be more and more healthcare delivered outside those four walls. So it made sense to us at Hackensack that Meridian had built this great network, this great continuum of care. They were located, I think at the time, in like 200, 250 locations already outside of their own hospitals. And we just said, boy, the geography is pretty good. It's contiguous geography, but it didn't overlap with our geography. They had the continuum of care. We had, a great flagship hospital in Hackensack. And boy, if we put this together, it would be fantastic. And you're absolutely right. It was literally a merger of equals. We were of equal size. If you looked at their revenues versus our revenues, you looked at their size versus our size, number of team members, number of physicians, it was all pretty equal. So when we put this together, we decided that we would have co-leaders. So the co-CEOs were myself and John Lloyd. Now, John Lloyd was somebody I knew for most of my career, somebody that I respected. He knew me, and I think he certainly respected me as well. And so we knew we could work together. But I got to tell you, creating co-CEOs is still, you could know each other like your brothers, right, from another mother, but it's not the same as when you're actually, working together as co-CEOs. And most of the time that doesn't work, but I have to say, John and I really worked at it, and it worked. And the merger was successful really from day one. The other piece I would say about the merger was that just merging for the sake of merging doesn't work. And I think a lot of business leaders that you've interviewed would tell you the same thing. It really, it only works if you achieve value. And the way we were to achieve value was through integration. So we had to roll up our sleeves and really, get at the hard work of integrating our two health systems. Otherwise, we would just be a confederation of hospitals or a confederation of nursing homes or whatever. If you didn't actually integrate the systems and the processes and the people and the culture, it wasn't going to work. So John and I both had that philosophy that integration, although it's hard work, was really, really essential. And there are great examples out there today of healthcare systems that merged 10, 15, 20 years ago, and they still haven't done that hard work, unfortunately. And they haven't been as effective as Hackensack Meridian was pretty early on.
I think even though it was hard and you both agreed to do it, both of you being there for a while made each part feel that they had a chance to be a culture in a different way, rather than the one taking over, then all of a sudden the other culture is really the dominant one. I think even though, it may have been harder for you and John to do that, I think it's why it's so successful today, because you were able to achieve everyone integrating properly, which you said, and it's not easy to do it that way, but you pulled it off. And then now obviously healthcare is changing. You got this huge merger, it's happening, and then COVID. I mean, then it hits, right? I mean, 2-3 years in, I mean, it takes years to get really integrated. And now all of a sudden this comes. So, obviously we all experienced it. It was horrible, tragic, a crazy thing that, will be in our lives forever. Obviously you have stories to tell about that. What was your biggest challenge going through that when it hit?
Well, first I would say this, that thankfully, as you point out, we did have a couple of years under our belt where we became integrated as a health system. It made us that much more apt to handle a crisis situation like COVID. But John, I can remember it like yesterday, March 4th, 2020. When we saw that first COVID patient, it was like a pit in my stomach. It was an incredible thing. We kind of knew it was coming, but until it was there, it was it was kind of surreal. I don't know how to describe it, but I remember 2 weeks before the first patient hit, we video conferenced with colleagues in Italy, and they were already dealing with this situation. And just watching what was going on behind them as they were describing the situation, it looked literally like that hospital. I think it was somewhere outside of Rome. That hospital looked like a war zone. And I just remember thinking and kind of thinking out loud that, hey, I hope that never happens here. And then sure enough, what happens a couple weeks later, it happens here. And we just got slammed early on. I mean, 3,000 this was March 4th. By April 14th, maybe a month later, we're treating 3,000 patients on the front lines in healthcare. We had to think on our feet. We had to convert patient care space. We had to create new space. We had to change air filtration systems on the fly. We had to recruit new staff. We had to move patients from one hospital to another. We had to scour the world for ventilators and pharmaceuticals. It was like a time no other. All I can say is I was so blessed to have the team that we had, both on the front lines, and they're still doing it, by the way. People talk as if COVID's over, but these people are still treating COVID patients. Our doctors, our nurses, our support team on the front lines every day. But what they did was truly incredible, outstanding. They are true heroes. So what they did on the front line was amazing. And the support I had behind the scenes, our team being able to think on the fly, being able to execute decisions, taking chances and risks sometimes. I mean, I remember early on, John, I had to make a decision, and I actually got a lot of pushback in the industry at the time for doing it. But early on in the crisis, we were recognizing that that COVID was so widespread, the community spread was so significant that we had to, even though it wasn't a protocol, we had to go to universal masking in our hospitals. So patients, visitors, our staff and there weren't enough masks to go around at the time. So we got criticized for doing that. But you know what? Within a week of my making that decision, all my colleagues around started to do the same thing because it was the right thing to do. We saved countless number of lives. If I had to do it again, I would do the same thing. But those are the kinds of, kind of on the fly decisions, life and death decisions that had to be made. And there was no playbook at the time. It was unprecedented.
Yeah, well, unbelievable job getting through that. We all had to watch it and feel it. The whole industry, the healthcare industry stepped up like heroes. Everyone became a hero and are heroes. And it was tragic, and I'm sure we all learned from it. So, they always say, like, as a leader, you only get what you can take, right? Like, a lot of times the right leader's there at the right moment, which you are and were. But think about it, like, you almost like start out washing the dishes if you owned a restaurant, right? You had an internship way back when. You went through the entire learning process of what it's like to grow in a healthcare situation. And here you are, and it's a gigantic company now. How do you keep culture going in such a large company? And then, having to go through COVID, how do you keep it even after that? How do you do that? Because it's not going to get smaller. It's going to keep, growing from here.
Yeah, I think one of the things you do with in a crisis like COVID is you have to take stock and think about the lessons that you learn, because that will absolutely strengthen your culture moving forward, as you mentioned. And, I think certainly appreciating the grit and the resilience of our leaders and our teams made us a stronger culture. As a matter of fact, we became more connected as an organization. Our culture was stronger than ever because we saw nurses, as an example, from Southern Ocean Medical Center down by Long Beach Island, travel almost 2 hours each way every day to support their colleagues up at Hackensack. We saw patients having to travel from Hackensack down to Ocean and Jersey Shore University Medical Center. There was just the connectivity that existed just strengthened our culture. The other piece I would say is that our culture became less bureaucratic. When you get to be big, there tends to be some bureaucracy that's just naturally built in. But I think, learning from COVID and learning that you can make decisions on the fly. You're not going to always get it right, but sometimes it's good to be able to get in there and make timely decisions, and then communicate those decisions. That's a real lesson learned as well. It creates a stronger culture. Breaking down some of the silos, breaking down some of that bureaucracy, but also communication. I mean, what we learned during COVID. I always was a believer in communication, whether it was through verbal communication or listening. Communication's always been very, very important to me. But John, I have to tell you, during COVID, what we learned was you could not communicate enough, whether it was through town hall meetings, through podcasts, through newsletters. We still, to this day, send out a COVID newsletter once a week. We were sending it out at one time, I think it was twice a day, because the communication was so important, not just to our team members, but to our medical staff, to our community, to our board members. Everybody was looking toward us as a source of credible information, and I do think that's really important to keep the culture going. The other piece I would say is visibility, John. I've always been a believer in getting out there, rounding at our various sites. I think COVID made it that much more important to support the folks, those heroes that were on the front lines. They recognized that a lot of non-patient caregivers like myself couldn't go to some of the patient care areas, but I did whatever I could, even in the midst of the crisis, to show support, to show solidarity. And that, I think that's such a big piece of our culture today, is really being visible, being out there, and it's just not good enough to be sending out written communications. People need to see you. They need to see you as a leader. They need to connect with you. You need to connect with them. You need to hear what they're saying on the front lines. I have to say that's still the best part of my job is getting out there and rounding. And I have to say, I learn something new, probably many things new each and every time that I round. So that's become, a really a centerpiece for our culture as well.
Well, reading about what was going on and watching you and hearing about, what Hackensack Meridian did, it seems like the other thing is you're not afraid to make a decision. You don't, you may be right, you may be wrong, but you can't sit there and not make decisions, especially during crisis. And look, you got through that and did a yeoman's job. It's funny when you say making rounds and seeing it. I mean, to me, that's the most fun part of business, talking to the people and understanding what everyone feels about what your customer feels. Undercover boss. I don't know.
Yeah.
That would be good. I could see you in that show, but you don't even have to be undercover because you're already out there and you already know, which is great. But today you have 36,000 team members, 17 hospitals. Unbelievable. You would think that's enough, but no. You want to keep pursuing further, making this a greater institution. And here comes some medical school idea, right? Like a university, which I'd love to hear the story of how that happened. And, I know where it is today. I've been reading about it, and it's amazing the different tacks that it's being taken on how you're looking at what this medical school delivers for the students and also for the community. So do you mind giving us a little background on that, or?
Sure, of course. The medical school is such an important piece of who we are as Hackensack Meridian Health today. Our mission, and I've talked about mission a few times already, our mission is to transform healthcare and to be the leader of positive change. And I do believe you can't transform healthcare without starting at the beginning, meaning how you educate physicians who are going to be our future medical leaders. The way medical schools have been designed, they've really taught the same classes, the same courses, the same way for generations, even hundreds of years. Obviously, the science evolves and the materials get updated and all, but it's really been the same type of curriculum. I truly believe, and this is why we started the new medical school. I truly believe we could make a difference. And I look at some of the outcomes in healthcare in America versus other countries, and honestly, it's not always a proud record. I mean, our costs are significantly higher than some of our colleague nations out there. Some of our quality is great, but there's other areas where we could be improved. And I do believe that starting a new medical school gave us an opportunity to really recreate, if you will, medical education. And what I mean by that is putting an emphasis as much on prevention as on treatment, because I believe if you're going to get at the core root of achieving great outcomes and transforming healthcare in America, you have to focus on prevention. So we redesigned, with starting this new medical school, we really redesigned the curriculum to focus on prevention. And one of the topics, or one of the programs that we're really very proud of and has actually received some national acclaim, is our human dimension program, where medical students are actually adopted, if you will, or embodied in families out in the community, mostly in underserved communities. And they follow those individuals or those families for their 3 or 4 years of medical education. And they understand firsthand some of the barriers that those individuals and families have in staying healthy. And they're empowered to do something about it. Sometimes it's issues like financial stability. Maybe it's issues like they don't have secure housing, or they live in a food desert and they can't stay healthy because they don't have nutritious food at their disposal. Maybe they can't get to their doctor's office for visits. That program has really, I think, kind of transformed how we think about medical education. Not to say that treatment is not important, it surely is, and our medical students get that bit of education as well. But I felt that starting our own medical school could really transform healthcare. And the other piece is, in New Jersey, we have a significant physician shortage. And I just was bothered by the fact that so many talented New Jerseyans were leaving our state to receive their medical school education elsewhere. And by the way, they never came back. They ended up practicing medicine in other states. So we had this talent drain, if you will. So by creating a new private medical school, I believe we could retain that talent in New Jersey. And by the way, this has been a huge success. So as I said, we received some nice national recognition because of our emphasis on prevention, emphasis on those social determinants of health to help people stay healthy. But also we're seeing talent that would have left New Jersey, stay in New Jersey, and we're seeing us having the opportunity to recruit new talent to our great state. So you can tell I'm a little excited about this medical school, but it's really been a great success.
Well, and you don't have any of the legacy stuff you have to deal with, right? And it's like monumental to start anything new. A medical school, I can't even, it's got to be really, really difficult. But I love how you're bringing your same attitude, mission, purpose, back to when you did your internship, being in the field, listening to the customer. I mean, like that's why any business is successful in healthcare, even though it's something that, it's not like going to a restaurant. I mean, like it's the same mantra on why I think anyone will sustain and be successful into the future. And feeling like not just like a number, but that a customer is important, even when it has to do with your health.
Yeah, I mean, that's so true. Yes, we're not a restaurant, but we are very customer focused business, if you will, or customer focused industry. We need to hear from our patients. We need to hear from the families. We need to hear from our communities of what we can do to improve healthcare. And, one of the other things that we weren't afraid of doing, I mentioned that continuum of care before, but you know what? We need to invest in ambulatory care. We need to bring healthcare closer to people's homes. They don't, the traditional concept in healthcare was everybody came to the hospital. It was kind of like the center of the universe for healthcare.
Yeah.
You know what? We should be getting closer to their homes or actually providing healthcare in people's homes. We saw it during COVID, especially during the lockdown. People couldn't get out. They were expecting healthcare to be delivered within their homes. Maybe it was through technology, through their cell phones, through telehealth. And, that's something else that we're investing significantly in. I think you have to get out of your own way sometimes. You got to think out of the box and think about the customer, think about the consumer or the patient in this case, and what they want and what they deserve. And what they want and what they deserve is quality healthcare closer to home or at home wherever possible.
And perfect example of like why companies don't, a lot of people don't last 10 years, 5 years in business, and you need your health systems and your hospitals to serve the community. But if you don't change, I mean, we've had more change through technology, what COVID forced us all to think about and learn about in the last 5 years than we had in the last 15 or 20, right? So if you don't learn how to embrace change, you're going to have a problem. So with all this change and with all this responsibility and not being afraid to keep pushing forward and doing more, how do you handle your stress, right? I mean, like it's a lot, right? And, obviously that matters, right? How you deal with that. So how do you handle yours?
Well, it's probably a combination of things. And, it'd be easy for me to say, well, I just go home and I block it out. But you know what? Let's be real. I mean, I always say that this is not a job. It's a lifestyle. So, it's not black and white. You can't just turn on and turn off the personal and the professional. But I do think there are ways. Number one is I have to continually talk about the fact to myself or to anybody who listens that what we're doing is important. We're focused on the mission. We're doing the right thing. We may have good days. We may have not as good days, but we have to be focused on the mission. I think it's also important, to balance your life a little bit, to make sure that you spend enough time with family. And I know that's tough in these days, but you know what? Whenever you can, I try to do that. I try to spend some quiet time with my family. I'm enjoying my family. I have a new granddaughter, and
Congratulations.
Thank you. Spending time with her is just amazing. That's a life changer in itself. I'm an active person, so I think exercise is very important and that can help reduce stress. So, I try to work out regularly, play different sports. As I mentioned before, growing up, I did play sports and I like to stay active. I think that's really very, very important. And you know what? I think the other piece is that, you have to put everything in perspective and you just have to say, okay, you know what? I have a long-term vision, but there's only 24 hours in the day, and this is what I'm going to accomplish today, and just try to set your expectations to be real so that it can really ground you in terms of what you're doing, and as I said, focusing in on that mission. So I think all of those together have helped me kind of balance the stress. Yeah, I guess the best person to ask that question would be my wife, and she could tell you there are times that that I am a little bit stressed, but I think more often than not I'm able to really to balance it and to live with it and to deal with it.
You'll know it'll go away, right? Like it comes in and out, and
Yeah,
nothing's permanent, as we know, right? So
right.
if you realize that the things that are going maybe not the right way that you would like it to go, that's just as not permanent as the things that are good, you sort of
Yeah.
get your way through, right?
Yeah, and the other thing I would want to add is I'm a firm believer in coaching, and I think even as a CEO, I need coaches. Football teams need coaches,
Yeah.
CEOs need coaches, and so I do speak to a coach on a regular basis, and it's helpful because you're sharing ideas, sharing maybe frustrations, sharing some stressful moments, and you talk things through, and it's really, really healthy. I believe in it for our leadership team. I think whether it's mentoring, whether it's coaching, I think it's really an important aspect of being a good leader and managing that stress. And I find it to be extremely helpful.
So asking for help is a strength, not a weakness, right? And
Absolutely.
with healthcare and everything that's going on in the world over the last 5 years, we all need to have our coaches, our mentors, our inspirations.
Yes.
And you are one to many. I want to thank you so much for doing this. I know how valuable your time is, but to hear from someone that's been so instrumental in so many of our communities in New Jersey, it's nice that they, hear you in a different way and can, learn from you in a different way. So thank you. I know we can find Bob on LinkedIn, and you got your website for the hospital. Is there anything else you would like the audience to know, or
Just that the audience should know that at Hackensack Meridian we're really focused on improving the health of our communities. We're at it 24/7. They should know that our team members truly are heroes. The work that they're doing every day is incredible. So I would just ask everybody to continue to support them. The citizens of New Jersey have been fantastic, especially during this COVID period. So we're going to do the best we can for the people we serve, and we would ask for that respect back, because these women and men are truly special. And it's just been an honor to lead such a great organization all these years.
well, keep dreaming big, because we need you to dream big and keep making our lives and healthcare better for New Jersey, wherever else you're going to be. Thanks, Bob. Really appreciate you being on.
Thanks, John. It was great.